Kaka la 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 kaka kaka.
All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I am your host, Malcolm Moore, and once again we have the return of the living Koo Koo Boy. How are you today, Scott Coblio?
I am still alive in 85.
This is going to be our Halloween episode. Are you pretty excited about Halloween coming up?
No. I mean, I don't celebrate it anymore, really. But we do have the parade that starts right here on Fairfax, which is a block from my house. And so,
I didn't realize they had one it's on Fairfax?
It's really just a walk. It's not a formal parade. It doesn't have floats or anything. But people come in costume and they walk up and down. And sometimes I go out and partake.
Can you look from your balcony to see it?
No, because my balcony overlooks the courtyard. It doesn't overlook Santa Monica Boulevard. If I stood on the roof, maybe.
Do you get trick-or-treaters up here in your MC Escher courtyard?
No. I think they go to some of the houses, but they don't come to I'm in an apartment building, so they don't come to the buildings.
There's no kids that live here that would be dressing up and coming around?
I see them, but they don't dare come here.
All right, so let's go way back in time.
Okay.
To a very young Scott Coblio. What is your first memory of Halloween?
You know what I think of? Well, I guess I was going to say the art class in school, making you make all the construction paper things, and the witches they would put up, those cardboard skeletons and witches.
And this is Rochester, New York?
Geneva,
okay.
That's up near Buffalo. But then suddenly I remembered something before that, which is before I was in school, my mother asked me what I wanted to be for Halloween.
And how old do you think you were?
I was probably about 4 or 5. And I told her that I wanted to be a pretty girl.
For Halloween?
For life. I was answering just in general. So Mom says...
There is one day a year where you can be a pretty girl.
Yeah, I was like, can I thought it was like a genie wish. I was like, can I be whatever I want and stay that way?
So when your mom said this, did you understand the concept of Halloween?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I did. I knew we were going to be trick-or-treating, and then it was a disguise. And so, and she was really good about it. She said, well... You can't just be a pretty girl, honey. You got to be a character that people recognize. So then she put her thinking cap on, and she was like, how about Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz?
Ah.
So she got me a little gingham dress. That was probably a hand-me-down. She took a pair of black leotards, and she made them braids.
Uh-huh.
She made a wig out of the leotards.
Is there a photo of this?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. And lipstick, rouge, and everywhere we went, I don't know whether people could tell I was a boy, but everybody had the same reaction. What a beautiful little girl.
And how did that make you feel?
I felt great until my sister Kelly ripped my wig off at every house and said, that's my brother. I was like, no.
Don't ruin it.
I was getting away with it. But yeah, no,
so that's probably your first Halloween experience.
And my first time in drag.
And were you ever a scary character, like a traditional Halloween, like a vampire or Wolfman?
Yeah, I mean, I think those were the days where it was mostly plastic masks.
Right.
So I think we had the Huckleberry Hound.
Oh man.
We had the witch,
awesome.
the scary Disney witch.
Was there a Snagglepuss? He's my favorite.
I don't remember that. I think we had Casper.
Okay.
We had stuff like that. That's what I remember seeing in the scrapbooks.
And were these when you'd go to the store and get the plastic mask with a little rubber band and then maybe like a very flimsy outfit to go with it?
Yeah, we didn't get into making our own until we were middle school, and then we started being zombies.
Ah.
Just like black eyes and
zombies
faces.
are so popular now, but when we were younger, there's Evil Dead, maybe Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There wasn't too much about zombies, right?
No, it was pretty much George Romero.
Right.
Night of the Living Dead, and there were some 70s zombies movies that they would play on Creature Features.
Ah.
And the one we loved was called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Now, would you have seen this, on one of the 3 channels, or PBS, or later on UHF?
It was on one of the 3 channels. We had Creature Features Chiller with the hand. And I think there was even a third.
Would this be something you have wait up late and then maybe Elvira would narrate?
Yeah, she came out.
Go to commercial, right?
In the 80s. In the 70s, it was Monster Movie Matinee, Creature Feature, and Thriller. Or Chiller. Right. I don't remember what it was called. Chiller. But yeah, we watch them. They usually be on Sunday.
So Zombies, Pretty Girl, any other ones that you can remember that stick out?
No, not really. I didn't get into my costumes like some people did.
Yeah.
Where it was like a passion project.
Right.
I was just happy with a mask.
Now, my guess is, as far as scary creatures, you're probably into Hammer horror, campy stuff, right? Maybe Creature from the Black Lagoon or like a Christopher Lee vampire movie.
We loved Hammer movies. We loved Barnabas Collins and what was that show called? Dark Shadows.
Yes.
We loved that show because of it was live sometimes.
That I didn't know.
And all these things would go wrong, and they would just go to air with the mistakes in them.
Yeah.
And I remember the gravestones.
I didn't know it was live. That's crazy.
Gravestones getting knocked over, vampire teeth coming right out during the neck bite. Kate Jackson was on there once, and she got tied up, and the guy couldn't tie the knot on her gag in her mouth, so it fell down, and she just had to hold it between her teeth and go. And we're like, girl, just open your mouth. But no, that's what we watched it for. And the devil would forget there was a guy who was supposed to be like a demon. He forgot his lines. And Angelique was whispering them to him visibly on the staircase.
One thing I loved about Hammer movies, because I think it was about 15 years ago, my wife and I were really into them. We were watching all of them. They always used the same stock footage. I remember there were 2 that were looking out the back of the carriage was always exactly the same. And then, of course, the castle catches on fire.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like Scooby-Doo, the same exact scene that they would use to save money.
Right, because that's an expensive shot to cook up a fresh version of every time.
And the Roger Corman and all that.
And it wasn't like today where you can go to the internet and revisit it. So really, maybe by the time you saw it again.
Oh, that's right. I didn't think about that.
I mean, there were reruns and there was reruns on TV, but you were at the mercy of that. It was much easier to rip things off before the internet. Without getting clocked.
There were a lot of things that they'd show once a year, like Wizard of Oz or Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But you're right. When I got here, we were just talking about my dad would drop me and my best friend off to watch Godzilla movies. And it was a big deal. I might see Godzilla versus Mothra, but I might not see that until the next time they show it. You're right. Mm-hmm. A lot of this stuff wasn't syndicated for TV yet.
Yeah.
What are some other scary creatures that you liked? Who were some of your favorites?
Scary creatures. Well, what did I like? I did love Godzilla, as long as it was the rubber suit. I don't know. Remember those Aurora models? Were they Aurora? You put them together and they glowed in the dark, and they'd be like miniature Frankenstein and Mummy and Wolfman.
Yes, when we were younger, stuff kids played with were much more dangerous, like cooking kits, and you make those gel things, right? Mm-hmm. You would heat them up and they would take form of something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Vincent Price would advertise some of it.
I remember when he was doing cooking commercials, and
remember the shrunken heads that you used apples for?
I don't know that. I mean, I remember sea monkeys, but I don't remember the shrunken heads.
I think Vincent Price, if I'm correct, advertised them, and they would you'd push these little eyes into them, and features, and you use apples and you bake them until they shrunk, and they would look and then you put little wigs on them. They'd be your shrunken heads.
Do you remember, was there a commercial for that? Or I was speaking with a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about how back in the day, before internet, we'd get comic books in the back of the comic, right? You would have to mail in to get your sea monkeys or get your little army guys in a chest.
Yep.
How did we get the shrunken head from Vincent Price? Do you remember?
I think it was available in stores. I don't think it was mail order. I think it was an ad for something you could find in the store.
Yeah, everything was catalogs and magazines and comic books.
I remember me and my dad. I remember Bazooka bubblegum.
Of course, with a cartoon, right?
With the cartoon, and once in a while there'd be like a mail-in order where if you sent in enough of those cartoons, they're like proof of purchases.
Or like cereal box, yeah.
Yeah, you could,
that was another big thing, the back of the cereal, right?
Yes. So I remember we chewed up all this gum so we could send away for like a kite or something. It was so not worth it. It was like I felt like there were like hundreds of wrappers.
And trading cards, too, would have the stale gum and sometimes deals.
Remember how stale that gum was?
Oh.
Before Bubble Yum, it was like a rock.
But candy was different back then. I mean, we had the wax with a little bit of juice in them. You know, you'd have to chew that up.
That was so weird. Do you remember I remember my friend Adam I would sit with him on the school bus. He had that gum that looked like nuggets of gold, and it came in a gold miner's sack that was like cotton with a drawstring, and I had gold nuggets.
Oh, I am remembering that, yeah. I mean, when we went, we're roughly the same age, when we went trick-or-treating back then, what were some of your favorite candies? I remember the things I would get upset by. Sometimes I would go to a house and they'd give me like a napkin with coins. You know, people that didn't believe in giving candy because of sugar, and they would warn us that there might be razor blades.
Oh, every apple had a needle in it. Every apple.
What would be like a candy that you were really excited to get?
Yeah, I liked your basic chocolate, like filling, like give me a Snickers bar.
Yeah.
Like my sister wanted Starburst and things that would last longer.
Right.
I didn't care about long lasting. I wanted
instant
immediate
gratification.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, something like a Snickers. We had weird stuff like Clark bars, Zenith bars,
Chiclets. Remember those?
Yep. Charleston Chew. Remember? Or the things that were supposed to last and last, like they're so chewy, supposed to take forever to eat them.
People didn't really warn us about candy back then. I mean, this was the age of Velveeta and Steakums. My little sister and I, when we went trick-or-treating, at one point, my parents said, okay, we don't want you to eat all this sugar. You can have one piece of candy a night. And I wasn't going to go for that. So when my parents went to sleep, I went downstairs, I got my whole bowl of candy, and I hid it under the bed. Unfortunately, my dog went under the bed, ate all of it with the wrappers on, and threw it up everywhere. So I learned my lesson.
Ate it with the wrappers on.
Yeah.
I
mean, dogs, they don't ask you what the food is. They don't think about it. They just...
I'm convinced dogs don't have taste buds because some of the things they're okay swallowing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible they can be tasting.
Yeah, I mean, cats are cool because they do that thing when their mouth is open and they're smelling. It's kind of creepy. They're like,
yes.
You know, they're taking it all in. I think they're a little more cerebral.
Mm-hmm. They're finicky. You can give them fancy feast and it's still not good enough. Yes.
Scary cats, black cats. Let's talk about movies. What are some of your favorite scary movies that would fit in with Halloween?
Well, the one that comes to mind is probably the first one that made a huge impact on me, and it's that Carnival of Souls.
Oh, classic. That one's good.
I know people, it was filmed, for people who don't know, I think it's 1962.
Yeah.
It's filmed on location in Salt Lake City, Utah.
That I didn't know.
They had the benefit of an incredible location around which they wrote the screenplay. The location was a giant abandoned salt air pavilion / amusement park. Architecturally very interesting looking.
Yeah.
It's like the Taj Mahal.
Right.
So you picture that as this woman is like drawn to going there, and then you fill it with ghoulies, and you got yourself a great B movie.
Right there. That's the pitch.
Mm-hmm. And the ghoulies are, she's imagining, or is she? And, you know, at the beginning of the movie, she's in a car accident, drives off a bridge into a muddy river, and doesn't come out for 3 days.
This is 60s.
And for the whole movie, she keeps going in and out of being invisible, where people can subtly not see or hear her, and she doesn't know why. And the whole time she's being tailed by this dead guy.
It almost sounds like the Three Faces of Eve.
With Joanne Woodward? No, it doesn't.
You're making me think of back then, though, movies were not safe. There was no central casting making sure that everybody was okay. I mean, you hear about terrible things on Wizard of Oz, like mercury poisoning from the Tin Man.
Oh, okay. So did Joanne Woodward get injured?
I don't know. So Carnival of Souls.
Carnival of Souls is a biggie. And of course, when I was little, the Wolfman terrified me with Lon Chaney.
Lon Chaney, yeah.
Because, not so much because of the character, but that lady who was, that gypsy lady, only a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is full and bright. So she scared the hell out of me. And she's like his secret keeper. She's the one who knows he's going to turn, the only one who believes he's going to turn into a wolf.
And does she use that against him at all? Like, I'll spill your secret? Or?
No, she's kind of trying to get him to safety for the whole movie. Like, get him out of society. Yeah. But there's a scene where he's in jail and he's like, you have to keep me here, or I'll turn into a wolf and I'll hurt people. He's like, you have to. And then there's a line where he says, "This is not a movie." And as a kid, I believed him because he said, "Oh, it's not a movie." And in my mind, I thought, "Oh my God,
your pupils are dilating.
It's real." He just told me this is really happening.
Wow,
it's a documentary. What I'm watching. And now I know that there are wolfmen. And I hallucinated a wolfman when I was little. I was not sick. I did not have a fever. I was in bed in the morning. I opened my eyes, and up over the horizon of the bed came Wolfman. And all he did was go, huh. And then he went back down.
Well, that was enough.
Like on a hydraulic. But yeah, I saw him and I hallucinated a lot when I was little. Usually when I had a fever, but always I saw and heard things that were not there.
Yeah. And I think back then we didn't have so many things distracting us, so we might have been a little more sensitive to things like that.
One time I had a fever and I knew that I was a mountain, and that there were people like hiking on me. And it was two women.
It's like Gulliver's Travels.
Absolutely. And I could hear them. I could hear their conversation as they were trying to reach the summit, which would be my head, I guess. And one of them said, "Where's the toilet?" And the other one said, "He's the toilet." And I had to wrap myself around that, my brain around that.
And so you were lying in bed and you just saw these?
I heard them. That was an auditory hallucination. Mm. Another time I saw revolving heads, and I couldn't stop saying revolving heads, revolving heads, revolving heads, revolving heads. These are all stories, but I don't remember that one. That was my mother used to tell me about that.
So, Carnival of Souls, 1960s. Can you think of any scary movies from the 70s or 80s?
Oh, tons.
80s, I loved like the ones like Reanimator, the B movies.
I was so sick. What a sick movie. I watched it with my mother and lived to regret it.
At least you didn't watch From Beyond. That one is much more disturbing. Do you remember that?
From Beyond, I make reference to that movie all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know why? The aspect of it that I think is so innovative. If I remember the premise, these things are in the air. They're like snakes in the air, kind of.
Yeah.
And they're whipping around, and they can only see you if you look at them. If you see them.
Didn't it have something to do with the pineal gland, too?
I don't know, but...
Yeah, the little thing that came out of the forehead.
Yes. Yeah, very David Cronenberg.
Very much, very much.
But I felt like that's a great analogy for negativity between people in real life. Because everyone's got this subtext where their subconscious is preoccupied with what they're afraid of, with what their fear is happening.
Yeah.
And you can plug into that subtext with someone and regret that you did it. Because then you start having this subtextual, are you screwing with me? I don't know. Are you screwing with me? Are you trying to destroy me? But only if you look at it. If you look at it, it sees you. If you never look at it, if you stay up here, we can both stay up here.
That's such an old story, too, things not to look at. I mean, you've got the thing in the Bible with people turning to Saul. You've got Medusa. Mm-hmm. Don't look at it.
And was it Nietzsche who said, don't look into the abyss?
Yes.
The abyss will look back into you or something.
Exactly.
So those are words to live by, because I do think negativity is like that. If you don't countenance it, it doesn't countenance you.
I agree. So, okay, we did a little bit of 60s, a little bit of 80s, something from the 70s. For me, the 70s, I remember a lot of Stephen King. You had Carrie, Salem's Lot, all that stuff.
Carrie's one of my favorites.
Why do you like that?
Just because I'm obsessed with the whole don't look at it or it will see you. I think it's a similar theme. Nothing is wrong with Carrie White, really. She's a little bit of an oddball, but nothing's really wrong with her, which they all discover on prom night. Oh, she's pretty. Oh, she could be one of us. Oh, I like her now that Tommy likes her. But before then, she's the dumping ground for everybody's negativity. So there is, I feel like it's more interesting as a sociological study than a horror movie.
Yeah.
Because what is that concept by which people decide to be mean to each other, decide that one person's going to be a scapegoat, and then, conversely, decide that that person's been approved now, and now we can all like them. It's like, then how
like a social...
loved him. That used to incense me.
Some of those animated movies like Rudolph, they kind of scared me.
Do you remember the child collector from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? That ghoul who drives around picking up kids?
Yeah. None of this stuff would fly today.
Oh, my God.
How about on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tinkerman? When he's like up the airy mountain, down the rushing glen. We do not go hunting for fear of little men. Like, even that guy showing up and talking to the little boy. Mm-hmm. That scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, and even Willy Wonka, the character, is a little bit spooky in certain parts of the film.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. He's even got like a green gel on him in that one part. Watching it last night.
That part where they're going in the boat in the river. Don't know where we're going.
That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah. I mean, back then, if you're in a theater and you're inside the movie, that I think it's a lot more powerful than when you watch it on. Like, we had a black and white TV for the longest time.
Cat People, I used to love Brian De Palma.
Oh, you mean with Natasha Kinski?
So stylized. I like the original Cat People too.
Yeah.
From the 50s or 40s.
And how many versions of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? I think there's at least 4 versions of it, right?
I love the first and second one. My favorite is the 70s version.
Yeah.
With Donald Sutherland.
Right.
And is it Margot Kidder or Brooke Adams? I guess it's Brooke Adams.
Yeah.
I mixed them up. Yeah, I love that one with Jeff Goldblum's in it too.
Yeah, and a lot of them are so gross, like the Blob.
The Blob was so weird. Wasn't it Steve McQueen? Why was he there?
They saved a lot of money on the special effects.
Yeah, and they're all through. I mean, you've got Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah.
As a great, and Nosferatu are terrifying.
Oh, and I love Dr. Phibes. I rewatched both of those. They're so good.
Yeah,
and they're so Art Deco.
Mm-hmm. In the 70s, Suspiria.
Yes.
I think it was filmed. It filmed in Italian. I've only seen
it was Italian. You're right. But
dubbed in English.
Yeah, that was really creepy.
It was super creepy and super stylized. That soundtrack. Everybody should hear the. It's not even music. It's just like.
Yeah, that's another great question I had for you. Is horror soundtracks. Mm-hmm. Big deal back then. I mean, iconic. The Halloween theme song, and then the Tubular Bells for Exorcist. Yeah.
And then
Exorcist is not even funny. That still stands up.
That a lot of people cite that as the scariest. And I might have to agree.
The second one is awful. I think everybody can agree with that. But the third one takes place right after the first one. So I recommend that. It's got George C. Scott, who you can't go wrong with that guy.
I remember some scary moments in that.
Yeah, that was the first time I saw something scary in a movie that happened during the day. There was no rain. It wasn't night.
Yeah.
It wasn't a storm. I remember there was like an evil lady at a nursing home that was crawling on the ceiling. It scared the crap out of me because it was during the day.
Yes. And isn't there some shot of an orderly in a hospital crossing the screen?
I think it's a nun, right? She has a giant pair of scissors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this person bolts his body, just bolts behind her.
Yeah, that's verging on more serious. Do you like any seriously scary movies? We've been talking about campy stuff, like Nosferatu and Frankenstein and Wolfman.
Well, to me, those aren't necessarily campy. Like, there's kitschy stuff, and then there's, stuff that's just... Then there's, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think is...
That's not my cup of tea. What about you?
That's truly unbearable suspense. Horror,
yeah.
It's well done, but it doesn't make you feel good. It's not fun to watch.
Yeah.
But it's very well done.
Well, then there's horror and then there's thrillers.
Right.
I've always been a fan of supernatural thrillers. Those are the most fun for me.
I like hauntings. I'll take The Haunting, The Others, The Orphanage was a good recent haunting movie.
And you like all the classic Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, all those guys.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with that.
Any zombie movie, I'll be there.
Well, you know that I can't I can't talk to you without mentioning Debbie Harry. I was doing a little research today. I'm a big fan of H.R. Giger. Of course, I love the cover of was it Cuckoo? That he did the cover of that, but I stumbled upon the video today that we were discussing. What are your thoughts on... Well, it was called Backfire, right?
Well, there were two videos they made together. This was in 1981, Debbie's first solo album.
And Giger directed both videos?
Giger directed. They went to Switzerland or wherever he lived.
Yeah.
And he directed her debut single, which was called Backfired.
Produced by Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
And if people don't know, he produced a lot of Madonna, David Bowie.
Yeah, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards from Chic.
Right, they're all from Chic, yeah. Same band, Tony Thompson, Bernard Edwards, all those guys. And they even helped with the Power Station. Remember that band?
Mm-hmm. Duran Duran became the Power Station.
So anyway, Giger directs two Debbie Harry videos. And by this point, Blondie had split up and she has gone solo.
They had split up, but the public was still like hungry for more. They thought. But I think they thought she was going to put something out, poppy out.
Yeah.
And instead she went funky and nobody really responded. But
was this after Rapture?
Yeah, Rapture was 1980 and then this is 1981.
Okay.
And Blondie wasn't broken up, but they took a year off. They had one more album the next year. But yeah, the videos for Backfired and a ballad called Now I Know You Know, where Debbie reverts to her flower power years, just becomes a hippie beatnik, and just feels the vibe. It's like one long shot, as you said, with no cuts, almost no cuts. You're praying,
or as they say, a slow edit.
Yeah, you're like praying for a cut, but it won't come. And the irony, as I was saying to you earlier, is all the stills from this shoot are compelling. They make it look like they must have gotten something really good.
They'd be great for like a poster or a T-shirt. They still look really cool. But
yeah, that's the book over there, pictures that Chris Stein took. And they're all. I mean, the book is more compelling than the videos.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they did wrong. Part of it's that it's got that cheap VHS look. And I'm like, why did you not film on film? That would have made such a difference right there.
Well, we were talking about earlier how at that point you had like the Rolling Stones, Emotional Rescue, and it seems like they had just discovered the effect of solarizing. Yeah. So everything was kind of glowing and you didn't have a lot of detail. Everything was outlined. And in the Backfire, I think whatever that was, a tank top she was wearing, you could see the background. You could only see her skin.
Yes. And we thought, like we were saying, we thought that was a special effect. Nowadays it would be considered a mistake that you left in.
She kind of has like a Wonder Woman headband that's bejeweled in the center.
And she's brunette, which is no one's ever excited about brunette Debbie. I mean, she's still beautiful, but there's something about the blonde hair that just takes her over the top.
Yeah, that's kind of the iconic thing that we need. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like people known for having mustaches like Tom Selleck. Yeah. You know, you just don't recognize them without it.
Yeah. And Debbie she aspired to be like a Bowie, I think, where she didn't want to brand herself and stick with that brand. She wanted to keep evolving. And
different characters.
Yeah.
Did she go by different names?
No, not really.
Just Debbie Harry or Blondie.
Yeah. But I think optically, she wanted to keep evolving, and that's not what people wanted.
Not many people can pull that off.
No.
So staying on the subject of Debbie Harry, I wrote down a few maybe Halloweenish, scary type of things she did. And when I looked up her filmography, I think we were saying before, she did do a lot of low-budget horror types of things. I remember when she was on Tales from the Dark Side.
I do too. That episode
the TV show and the movie. So go ahead and reflect.
Okay. Well, first of all, the reason we're talking about Debbie is because one of the reasons we're talking is because I'm obsessed with Debbie. Yeah, her episode of Tales from the Dark Side, I think, was 1986.
Yeah.
Same year as her second solo album, Rockbird. So she was trying to do a blitz. The episode was called The Moth.
Oh, yes.
and she plays a country witch,
right,
who's living with her mother, and she comes home with a knife in her back. I don't even remember why, but she wants
a knife in her back.
Yeah, okay. Someone has driven a knife into Debbie's back because she's supposed to be like a vixen who makes trouble for people, steals their men, and does voodoo spells. And she just doesn't have good karma.
Yeah.
So she knows she's dying, and she gets her mother to trap her last breath in a jar along with a moth.
Oh, this is all coming back to me.
And then she can live on as her mother, so that the mother gets stuck in the dying body of Debbie, and Debbie gets to... And the way they show you that it happened was Debbie's body dies in the bed, and then they show the mother, and she's got extra makeup on now because it's Debbie inside. She's got rouge and lipstick when she didn't have them before, and she primps her hair, and like, I feel sexy. But she's really unflatteringly shot, like from the foot of the bed. Like, it's ratty hair. I remember being very disappointed in the moth.
Yes.
And then in the 1990s, Debbie was in the movie version of Tales from the Dark Side.
I don't remember the movie. I do remember the show, and I remember watching that episode.
In the movie, it's basically Hansel and Gretel, and she's the woman who wants to bake them.
Oh, okay.
Except it's just Hansel. There is no Gretel. And the movie is all the stories that Hansel is telling to buy time.
Oh, okay.
So every time he starts a story, we go into that story and we'll see it as a movie within a movie.
So was the movie made after the show?
The show was 86 and the movie was 90, I think.
So this was the classic thing that this show is so good that we're going to make a movie next. We're going to take it to another level.
I guess, yeah. The TV series must have been popular enough.
Was the movie in theaters?
Yeah.
Another movie that she was in that I have not seen, I think, since it came out was Videodrome. I'm sure it's slightly dated by now, but can you tell us quickly the concept of that movie and then what was her part?
Okay, so Videodrome was filmed in 81, and it was directed by David Cronenberg, who had done Scanners at that point, and I think that's all he had done that was famous. He had made other movies, but that was what put him on the map, kind of.
Yeah.
That exploding head.
Yeah.
Everybody our age remembers the exploding head in Scanners. So Videodrome was a sci-fi movie that takes place, they shot it in Canada with James Woods as the lead actor, and he plays a guy who works for a little TV station, and they start getting a signal of this weird S&M broadcast called Videodrome that they don't know what it is, and apparently, just like From Beyond, if you look at Videodrome, it's got you.
Very judgmental themes in these.
If you look at it long enough, then now you're...
There was a lot of that in horror, right? Just to take a tangent, I remember a lot of the horror movies, if the teenagers had sex, you knew they were going to die. There's a lot of judgment. Don't look at it. Don't do this. Or you pay the price, right?
Yeah, there's a sense of if you invite it, then you're going to get it. And
it's like a vampire inviting into your home.
Yeah, exactly. He can't come in unless you invite him. So basically he's obsessed with watching video. He can't stop watching this weird, sleazy, kinky broadcast. He runs into this character named Nikki Brand when he's on a talk show. And Nikki's the host of her own radio show called Emotional Rescue with Nikki Brand. And there's a great scene of Debbie like taking in calls, and she's like, I hate my sister. I wish she was dead. And Debbie says, it's not your sister. It's you, lover. And you're the one who needs help. Would you call our distress center? Would you call the C-RAM distress center? Because you need it. You need it now. And those lines stay with you.
Yeah.
And then so he sleeps with Nikki Brand, and then Nikki finds out, he shows her Videodrome and she's turned on by it. She wants to go to Pittsburgh where they film it and audition. And he says, I said this to you earlier, watch it, Nikki. Those guys play rougher than even Nikki Brand wants to play. And Debbie says, that sounds like a challenge. And she goes off, and we never see her again except on TV, because now she's been absorbed into the signal. And we don't know if she's virtual, or if she's real, or if she was ever real, or if she was always virtual. Because we don't know
ahead of its time.
Because we don't know when his hallucination started. So the whole idea of virtual reality is new in that movie.
Long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of David Cronenberg. I mean, I like Dead Ringers and all that, and Existence and all that stuff. But one thing I like about him is he, in general, still uses practical effects. They don't have to look exactly real. But I think that's part of the fact that it's like surreal.
And you can always tell it's him because he has certain obsessions.
Yeah.
Where weird things are coming out of your body or going into them.
Yeah, that's true.
There
is a theme. And then another thing, I didn't realize she was in this. She was in the original Sabrina show, not the recent newer one that's tied in with Riverdale. But this was the 90s. And I was telling you, one thing I love about the show is the cat, because they keep going between a real cat and a puppet.
This is Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Yes. So what did Debbie play in this?
I don't think I've ever seen it. I mean, I know she was in it, but I don't think I ever saw it.
Wow. I have stumped you on Debbie Harry.
There's one thing I haven't seen.
There's still time.
Yes. She was also in John Carpenter's Body Bags.
Yeah, I did write that here, but I couldn't remember what it was. What was that? I mean, obviously I know who John Carpenter is. I thought I knew all his films.
I think it's a bunch 70s? Of short stories. It's 90s.
Oh, right. I did read that.
And she's a nurse, and I don't remember much about it. She's a nurse, and it's got gross worms coming out of his eyes and stuff. Like, I don't remember what's happening. I just remember there's grossness, and she plays a nurse. That's all I remember.
That's enough, I think.
And it's very unflattering. That was during her, drab years. I think she thought looking drab.
Her drab years.
Yeah, looking drab was gonna convince everybody she was a serious dramatic actress.
Yeah, I think I remember a bunch of people doing that. Like David Bowie wearing a plaid shirt, saying that he gets his clothes from Sears Roebuck.
Yeah, I'm not sure I support that.
All right, so as Halloween is approaching, do you have any ghost stories to tell us? Any spooky stories from your real life, or ones that people told you?
I have a couple from my real life.
Let's share.
Okay. The first one is short. The second one I'll try to shorten. When my mother was little, she grew up in the 30s. She had 5 brothers and sisters. Maybe 6. I can't remember. There were 6 kids total. The youngest one was her brother Dick, who was a baby, and he was riding in the car in his mother's arms in the passenger seat. Mom was in the back, and lining the walls of the car, which is probably like a Model T,
right,
were the laundry they had just picked up, which was hanging all around them, creating like curtain effect. And this drunk driver ran into them really hard, and he died. And the curtains, the clothing that was hanging functioned to sort of insulate.
Right.
And it might be part of the reason that none of them died. Because, like I said, the collision was hard enough that it killed the other driver.
Yes.
And everybody was fine, but my grandmother, Mom's mother, kept saying she thought the baby had died. She was like delirious, and she thought the baby had died.
Right.
And she kept saying, his head broke just like a little eggshell. His head broke just like a little eggshell. And they were like, Mary, he's fine. And she kept saying it. Well, when he was 17, just out of high school, Dick was riding around with a bunch of kids in a convertible. And that convertible got in an accident wherein Dick was ejected and his head broke against the pavement. When he landed, he died.
So she had a premonition?
That's kind of what it feels like.
Wow. Because
she kept saying that and it hadn't happened, but then later that's exactly what happened.
She was outside of time. Mm-hmm. That's a little spooky.
It feels like it. Huh. Or it's just a really weird coincidence.
That would have been a good one to tell at a campfire. I mean, in my family, you had to be a Boy Scout, and they always sent us on camping trips, and I would always be terrified because the older guys would tell us stories like this and then be like, okay, good night.
Sweet dreams. Well, do you remember, we both lived in Rochester, New York before we lived here in LA. And I lived I had a 2-story house that was built in the 1840s on Linwood Place behind a bar named Woody's.
Mm-hmm. I remember Woody's.
But anyway, I'm in this house, beautiful house. The rent was $250 a month, furnished home with a fireplace, 2 stories, 4 bedrooms.
Wow.
Gorgeous place, historical, all that. Well, every house in Rochester is historical because they're all built in the 1800s. But anyway, I started having nightmares every night in this house. And in the dream, I hear a woman scream, and And then I wake up and I feel like I have to check the doors and make sure that I didn't forget to lock them. So I get to the kitchen and the door is wide open. The kitchen door that goes outside is wide open. So now I know that I have to check the whole entire house and make sure there's nobody in it. So I shut the kitchen door, I lock it, I go down to the icky basement, which you don't want to do in the middle of the night. Check all around the furnace and make sure there's nobody hiding, nobody down there. I come up and check the main floor, nobody there. I go up to the second floor, which is even ickier, nobody there. So I'm like, okay. Go back down to the bedroom to go back to bed, and I can feel somebody directly behind me, like breath on my neck behind me.
Yeah.
And I turn around, and it's a guy holding a crazy-looking guy holding what looks like a pencil, and that it's aimed like for my throat. He's just going to plunge it into my neck and kill me with a pencil, which you could do if you had the gumption. All right. And then I wake up. So this whole time I think I've been awake, but I wake up and it's just a dream. And then I go out and I have to check the doors, of course. The doors are locked. So I'm like, okay, that was just a nightmare. Case closed. But then I keep having that same dream. And so my friend Lori was in the psychic community. And
you said the psychic community?
Yeah, she was a tarot card reader, and she had friends that were like mediums and stuff.
Well, do you know that? I mean, Rochester, New York was a hotbed for spiritual activity. In fact, that's where the spiritualist church.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So this type of activity was pretty common historically in Rochester. So. Right.
Okay. So the climate is ripe. The ground is fertile. So without telling her what was in my dream, we start playing Ouija.
Yeah.
And we're like, is there anyone here that wishes to communicate with us? Yes. What is your name? Miranda. And I've never gotten Ouija to spell anything.
It's a long word to spell with a Ouija board.
And I thought she was cheating.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not making a move, and it's just spelling out all kinds of shit. So who are you? Miranda. Did you die here? Yes. When? 68. 1968? No. 1868? Yes.
Wow.
So then we said, did you die a wrongful death? Yes. Where are you now? Here. And we're like, your body is here? No. Where is your body? Here. Your body is here? No. So that was the only thing it kept changing on, is where the body was. And we're like, well, what do you want us to do? Tell David. David was the name of the guy who owned the house.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. And then it said...
I mean, at that time.
Yeah.
Like your landlord.
Right. But he had no connection to the people who had owned it before.
Okay.
So I don't know why she wanted me to tell him. Anyway, so we got all that information. And it also said, get a fire, keep it lit. And I said, well, where did this happen? Well, what part of the house did you die in? Upstairs. The front room? No. The back room? No. The middle room? Yes. And so I said, should we continue this reading upstairs? No. Why? Unsafe. So I'm like, okay. I said, somebody's been waking me up, because I started waking up every morning with the sensation of having walked around the house the night before.
Right.
With someone. But I could never remember who was there. But it didn't feel like remembering a dream. It felt like remembering something I really did. But I don't know with who. So I said, have you been waking me up and walking me around the house and showing me things? Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So I said, okay. So that was weird enough. So exit Lori.
Yeah.
Enter Amy Brown.
Uh-huh.
Same exact shit was coming up, and I wasn't telling her.
Wait, so you guys are also doing Ouija board, and you're getting the same information?
Yes.
Wow.
Now it gets weirder than that. Exit Amy, enter Kelly. Same stuff. So then we call Lori's
And these
friend.
people hadn't talked to each other?
Nobody. No corroboration. So
and how did you feel when you were there getting the same information, like now for the third time? That must have really spooked you out.
I was really spooked out. And actually the first time when it was just Lori, we called her friend Carol on the phone, and they hadn't had a chance to corroborate. So Lori was like, I'm with Scott, and we're doing a Ouija read, and I just want to know if you can pick up any vibes on who we're talking to, if you get anything from your end. And Carol said, I'm getting a woman who died in the house, and I'm getting the year 68. And I'm like, that's a lot of accord. That's a lot of agreement. So exit all of them. I kept having these nightmares. They never ended the whole time I lived in that house. And so my friend Rich came to visit me one day, and he was writing a book on Mormons, and he wanted to go on the history of the Mormon religion. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not that strange because a lot of that took place near Rochester.
Right. So he wanted to go look at something where they keep the census records.
Right. Yep.
And I was trying to find obituaries to see if there had been a Miranda, anybody in my house at that time. And I finally found in the census that there had been, guess who? A Miranda White living in my house in 1866, 2 years before she says she died there.
Wow.
There was no census for 68.
This is what we did before internet.
It sure is.
We just chased down information.
Yeah, on foot.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And so I was able to confirm that there was a woman named Miranda living in that house. And what finally came, like the rest of the story as we filled it in, the reason she was killed was her husband. She was separated from her husband, and she had their son. And it said they had, in 66 they were still married, and it said there was a child. Apparently what happened was they separated. She kept the child. He wanted the child. Yeah. So he sent someone to kill her who would pose as a distant relative so that she'd let them in.
Intrigue.
Through the kitchen door, she said, is where he came through, not the front door. And the kitchen door is the one that was always open in my nightmare.
Yeah.
So she let him in, and he chased her up to the middle bedroom and, if I remember, tied her to a chair and stabbed her to death with something that was not a knife. Like, we were always like, was it a knife? And she was like, no, but it was like a pointy thing.
A pencil.
Yeah, and I'm like, in my dream, it was a pencil. So that was interesting.
It was a quill.
It was her own knitting needle. So, I mean, that's basically the story. I mean,
no, that's a good story.
And that house also, I had a summer party there once, after which I found 6 bats in the house who must have flown in because we kept the kitchen door.
What did you do? Because we lived in Rochester too, obviously, and I remember we had a 3rd floor, and often we'd get bats up there, and my mom, because she grew up on a farm, she would just come up with a bucket, catch the bat in a bucket, and then take it outside. While we all cowered and screamed. I
would use either a Pop-Tart box or a Tupperware, and I'd cup it over them and slide like a paper plate under it, and you'd see their little claw come out and try to come out.
Now you're making me think of, for a while, Christine and I, when the kids were little, we lived on a farm in Fairport. Mm-hmm. And we would have snakes come in the house. And I wasn't used to this. I was a big wuss. But she came up with she came up with her own way to get the snakes outside. And she didn't want to hurt them. So she would take one of my drumsticks, pick them up, put them in Tupperware, and then take them out and set them free. But then more snakes would come. Yeah.
Why do they want in? Warmth? Food? Water?
Well, one of the worst things is, so this is a really old house, and upstairs, our older son, Django, had a room, and next to his room, there was like a storage closet. And I remember one of the worst times, he said he saw a snake up there, and I opened the door, and it was just the snake's skin, which meant he was still cruising around somewhere.
That's like an alien where they find the shell, but not the alien.
It was a good time back then. And you know what's funny about Ouija boards? I was just telling a friend of mine, back then, right, there was nothing to do. We had board games. Should we play Monopoly? Should we play Snakes and Ladders? Or should we get that game, the Ouija board? It was so common.
Yeah.
In some ways, it wasn't scary. In some ways, it was. Because just like parents today might buy their kid a violent video game, our parents were like, okay, what do you want?
Do you want to talk to the dead? That's how The Exorcist starts, remember? Shit,
Yes.
Reagan is talking on her Ouija board to Captain Howdy.
Of course, people that don't live here are not familiar, but you know the Egyptian theater.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved here, that was like my favorite place to go because I spent $10. I went to the Egyptian to see a movie by my favorite director, Terry Gilliam, called 12 Monkeys. Mm-hmm. He was there. You could talk to the director. You could watch the movie discussions. And one of the last ones we went to is Christine and I loved The Exorcist. So we heard William Friedkin was going to be there. And we're like, let's go. You know, $20 for both of us. We go there. And sadly, it turned out he was really sick. And so they had Linda Blair. And we were like, okay, that's, just as cool. However, she didn't want to talk about The Exorcist. She is into saving dogs now. And then we learned nothing about the movie and it cleared up pretty quickly. I mean, nothing wrong with saving dogs, but I thought that was bizarre that
Why come to the event then?
Yeah.
If you're not going to talk about it.
Yeah. Moving on to our next topic with songs. I remember when we were little, the songs that we sang, like my dad would teach me these songs. Looking back, they're really creepy. Never would be accepted. Do you know the song Dunderbeck?
No.
So it went like this. This is what my dad sang to me when I was about 5 years old. Dunderbeck, oh Dunderbeck, how could you be so mean to ever have invented a sausage meat machine? All the rats and pussycats will never more be seen. They'll all be ground to sausage meat in Dunderbeck's machine. Pretty scary.
This is an opportune time to revive that song because of things that are in the news being said.
Well, I'm a music teacher at school, but there's no way I could sing that to my kids. Dunderbeck, that was his name.
Interesting. And this was a song that he knew from where?
I don't know. I just remember when I was little, he used to sing songs with me. What were some of your favorite scary songs?
Well, the first one I remember was in elementary school, and it's one of the songs that they would make us sing in music class when the Halloween was approaching.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was called, but the part I remember goes, witches, pumpkin heads, and black cats, scary spooks and black hats, rotten tooth, and oh, it's Halloween. It's not rotten tooth, but I couldn't think of that part. But yeah, it's Halloween. It had other verses, but that's the one I remember. We had the really popular ones that I still do with my students, like Monster Mash, and there's newer ones like This Is Halloween and stuff like that, but I'm more interested in your obscure ones. Yeah.
Did you have Halloween records or anything? I remember that was the big deal back then.
The sound effects record.
Yes.
That was like a bestseller for many years. I think everyone had that.
And they would tell stories on the records too, right?
When I was living in Pennsylvania as an adult, my friend Rich Chack, who was a cartoonist, he found this old radio program called Justin Fountain. He had like a Brooklyn accent, and it must have been from like the 50s. And it was a recording of his Halloween show that he did, that he wrote himself. It was called The Terror of Haunted House. And this whole thing is like he's doing all the characters, but they all have this Brooklyn accent. Even the ghosts.
On purpose, or that was just his voice?
He just couldn't lose the accent.
He couldn't undo it, yeah.
So it's like the boy goes to the old witch's house, and she's like, hello. And I used part of it on a Koo Koo Boy album. I sampled it for the beginning of the
That's
forum.
awesome.
And he goes, thinking to himself, he goes, oh no, a horrible face and a horrible looking old hag. And she goes, what did you say? That's the part we used on the record.
Yeah.
The Terror of Haunted House by Justin Fountain. But that's not something that everyone knows, but I associate it with Halloween. Does Homecoming Queen's Got a Gun qualify? It's murder.
What's that one?
Julie Brown, run. Everyone run. The Homecoming Queen's got a gun.
Oh, I do remember that. When was that from? The 80s?
The cops fired a warning shot that blew her off the float. I tried to scream duck, but it stuck in my throat. She hit the ground and did a flip. It was real acrobatic, but I was crying so hard I couldn't work my Instamatic. I ran down to Debbie. I had to find out what made her do it. Why'd she freak out? I saw the bullet had caught her right in the ear, and I knew then that the end was near. So I leaned down and I whispered in her good ear, Debbie, why'd you do it? She lifted her head and smiled and said, I did it for Johnny.
Who was your favorite vampire?
Well, I love Gary Oldman. It's the man himself. He's grown young.
You know, Gary Oldman, absolutely incredible there. Tom Waits, so many good performances. And there's so many good cinematic.
Hopkins, yeah. Anthony Hopkins is the old
Van Helsing.
Gary Oldman.
His outfits, all based on Gustav Klimt, who I love, with all the gold.
Yeah, and the weird hair. And
when he had the butt head. What was that? Like his hair. How would you describe that?
Like an upside down butt. The ram horns. Yeah, kind of like a butt head.
I mean, did you like when he looked like that, or when he had like the cool sunglasses and the top hat?
I think that one.
That was acceptable.
Yeah. But I can't pick a Dracula because I love Bela Lugosi and I love Christopher Lee.
Yeah, I'd have to pick Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
He's my favorite.
He might be the reigning champion.
I don't know who plays the original Nosferatu, the bald guy from Long.
Oh yeah, wasn't that Max von Sydow?
Yes, that was good. Was that silent?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I think.
I mean, for me, Vampires, nothing tops Anne Rice. I mean, it's not campy or funny, but I just loved her
I loved reading those books, yeah.
I love reading her books, and I've got to say, before she died, she signed a deal with AMC, and the Mayfair Witches, an interview with a vampire, just knocked it out of the park. Have you seen any of those, the new show? Absolutely incredible. Okay. I mean, they got the essence of it, I think, much better than the Tom Cruise movie, which I'm not a fan of.
I'm not either. I was disappointed in that.
But the new show, absolutely incredible. We've talked about a lot of good Halloween things. However, we must at least mention Murderous, your movie. I know we talked about it a lot on the first podcast, but what is the latest with that? Are there some showings coming up? You said there was a book that is related.
Yeah, there's some stuff happening.
In case people popped in now, give us a really brief overview of what Murderous is.
In 2007, I made a feature film called Murderous, which was about a true crime that happened in Phoenix in 1931. Who's crackling? Is that my kitchen? Is somebody?
Are we having a haunting? Is there a rat? Around here would probably be a possum.
Who's eating my potato chips? I guess it's outside. Where is it coming from?
Timing is impeccable.
It's outside. Okay. Oh, they're probably bringing the trash out for tomorrow because Friday is trash day. Okay.
Moving on, Murderous.
So, yeah, I made a movie about this true crime that happened in 1931 in Phoenix. And then every year for 10 years or 12 years, they showed this film in Phoenix, always around or on October 16th, which was the date of the murder.
Right.
And nothing really happened from the film, but it did show for years. And
you had that wonderful premiere in Rochester.
We had premiered it in Rochester.
Was it the Little
Theater? Yeah.
Okay.
As part of Outfest, even though it's not really gay themed, they let us show it anyway.
And for listeners too, it's puppets.
Yeah, and I used vintage marionettes.
Okay.
And now there's a new book on the case that's a novel, and it's called The Murderess. No affiliation to my film Murderous, but it's about the same thing. And the author, whose name is Laurie Notaro, just in Phoenix, and they had like a panel where all the people, and I was invited to be there, but I didn't go because I didn't have the money. I wanted to go. It was all the people who have published things about the case, talking about their various opinions of what really happened, because it's never been totally solved how it went down. So that's kind of new. The book is new. If the book leads to like a TV movie, or if Ryan Murphy ever makes a limited series out of it or something, there's always the hope that it will reflect back some interest on my film.
You could be the narrator.
I would love them to get me involved as like a consultant. Yeah, and the other thing that happened was so this panel was on October 20th, a couple days ago. Yeah, that's just our like background music. The crunchy.
What should we say it is?
I think it's zombies crunching on bones.
Okay. So
But anyway, the very last thing I wanted to say about that was after the panel, everybody went from wherever they had the panel to what we call the Death House, which is still standing. And it's been restored to its 1931 glory by the current owners. Inside the Death House is the puppet from my film Murderous, which the owners bought on eBay.
Really?
And they made a little shrine to Murderous in the house that's permanent.
Oh, we need to do a pilgrimage there.
Yeah. So I could have seen that if I had gone, but it was just like, you know, and I had a place to stay, and they were even offering to pay my airline ticket.
Oh, man.
But when you pour, it's still like, I still have to get my ass to the airport and get rent a car and eat food while I'm there. And yeah, I really did want to go. And I'm wishing the best for her book. And I really want to see that house.
Did you say you were on someone else's podcast about Murderous, though?
I was on hers.
And I'm sorry, her name was?
Lori Notaro.
On one of your Koo Koo Boy albums, I believe there's a song called I Monster.
That was the name of my autobiography. The song is called I'm a Monster.
I'm a Monster. And is there also a song about vampires?
Vampire girls, yes.
Vampire girls, when all is said and done, just want to go to the beach and have a little fun. They want to let their hair down, catch some rays of sun. Vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire girls don't work 9 to 5. You can catch them on the graveyard shift, but you may not make it home alive. They want to find your soft spot and drink until it's dry. Vampire girls, vampire girls. Let's go to the park, to the store, to the zoo. Everything's closed now, nothing to do. Catch a midnight movie, maybe 1, maybe 2. Vampire girls got nothing to do. Vampire girls walking down the street in liquid blue eyeshadow, tattoos on their feet. They're tanning in their daydreams and peachy heat. Vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire girls, playing solitaire, watching Johnny Carson talk to Linda Blair. They read a fashion magazine with egg whites in their hair. Vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire girls, vampire
Okay, well, those were the whole first album of Koo Koo Boy, my band, in 1991, was made up of songs I had written in high school and college, except for those two. The two new songs I wrote for that album were I'm a Monster, which was a duet between me and Dan, the guitar player and orchestrator. And the idea of that song was supposed to be like Bowie's Suffragette City, where it's like, hey, man, oh, don't be okay. So it's like, I'm the hey man, or Dan was like the hey man. So he'd be like, are you a monster? And it would go to me, and I'd be like, leave me alone. And he'd be like, is that your real hair color? Leave me alone.
So call and response.
Call and response.
And
yes.
for listeners, this is Dan Snyder.
Yes, and he's still active back in Rochester.
Fantastic singer, drummer, and guitar player, right?
And bass player and everything. Yeah, he could do everything. He's a one-man band. He's even acting now in plays.
Wow.
And getting great reviews. So yeah, so I wrote that song for something that we could sing together, and it's about, even though I'm using the word monster, what it really means in the context of the song is, are you a freak? Like, is something wrong with you? Like, I'm hearing gossip. Is the gossip true?
Different kind of monster.
Yeah, like a social oddity. And then the other song, Vampire Girls. The point of Vampire Girls is that by the time they wake up every day, everything is closed. So the challenge of Vampire Girls is, where are they going to go?
Yeah. Because they're vampires and they're girls. Mm-hmm. It's conflicting.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah. So so neither song is really spooky, but they could sort of be Halloween songs just because of monsters and vampires. Vampire Girls. Everything on the first album was about murder.
There is a song called Cooking for One of my favorites. You and I did a version. Where did that come from?
A good version, too. A really trippy version. It sounds like Velvet Underground or something. Sort of, yeah.
It sounds a little bit tied into Murderous. Same theme.
Yeah, Cooking for One. When I was in college, I used to go play the piano and write songs on this grand piano that was inside an empty chapel. Nobody was ever there, but it was always unlocked. They had a pipe organ you could play and a grand piano. Nobody.
That's amazing.
There. Yeah.
How you just walk in there?
It was right near my dorm, and I don't think I ever encountered a human being in there.
Yeah.
And I wrote,
it was like a studio ready to go for you.
Yeah. I recorded there, and I wrote a lot of songs.
What did you record on? Did you just bring in like a realistic tape recorder? What did you?
Little portable tape player.
Yeah.
That was before boomboxes, I think.
Yeah.
Even. Yeah. Maybe not. But
Radio Shack.
Yeah, just yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you'd go in there.
I went in there, and it was very conducive to writing dark, gothic themed stuff.
Lots of reverb.
Yeah, morbid. Yeah, reverb. Just let the morbidity flow. And Cooking for One was about a girl who, the first line is, murder occurred in the apartment where she lived. But then throughout the song, she's inviting people over, but nobody ever leaves. And that's because murders occur in the apartment where she lives. And so it's a very simple, short song. The way I wrote it on the piano sounds like Peanuts, music from the cartoon Peanuts.
Yeah.
And then you and I recorded a version that you orchestrated.
Right. It was just you and me, a little funkier.
Yeah, and you kept the dinky dinks, but you made all the surrounding music trippy.
I didn't realize how perfect of a guest you are for a Halloween special, because it seems, would you agree, there is a theme in your life of hauntings and thrillers and suspicion
and murders.
Where do you think it comes from? Has it always been? You've always had one eyebrow up, like being aware of something spooky in the air?
Yeah, my mom had that huge true crime library, so I grew up reading it.
Oh,
and
like Helter Skelter, things like that.
All of them. Boston Strangler, Jack the Ripper, Helter Skelter, Ted Bundy.
What about Edgar Allan Poe?
She didn't have much fiction, but we did have no, did we? We had this like encyclopedia of famous authors. He may have been in there. Yeah, it was like Kipling and all these weird. He may have been in there.
She had a library.
Yeah, but she couldn't get enough, and she was the nicest lady, but she was bloodthirsty. She feasted on murder and the bad luck of other people.
It had a little bit of an influence on you.
Oh yeah, we were all morbid. We used to play Manson Family.
Oh my God!
And stab pillows.
Wow,
we stabbed.
I did not
pillows.
see that one coming.
No, we stabbed pillows while each other were wearing the pillows.
When you say we, who was involved?
Me and Kelly, the mini Manson family, the auxiliary Mansons. In case they needed spares, we were on call.
Wow, that one left me speechless.
When Mom died in 1997, I guess she had never replaced. She kept her bedroom pillows for her whole life. They were good pillows.
The ones that you had stabbed?
And the stab wounds were still there.
Oh, my God.
When we took the pillowcases off, we were like, these are the ones we stabbed.
What a wonderful, graceful, understanding mom.
Yes. Oh, yeah. She understood. She understood that you could have a morbid imagination and be a kind person.
Yeah.
How's it go again? Oh, yeah, I've never done good things. I've never done bad things. I never did anything out of the blue, come to think of it.
Ashes to ashes.
Ashes to ashes.
All right, on that very spooky note, Scott Coblio, a.k.a. Koo Koo Boy.
Yes.
Thanks for talking today, and I'll see you in part 3. Maybe we'll talk about Godzilla next time.
Yes, let's talk Godzilla.
And by the way, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Until you've walked around town in a feather boa, you'd never really live. Until you've walked around town in a feather boa, it's always best to give. I'm just a star, I'm just a star. Are you a monster? Leave me alone. Is that your real hair color? Leave me alone. Are you a zombie? Leave me alone. I'm a monster, you're a monster, just let it go. Everyone's a freak, so go with the flow. I'm a monster, you're a monster, just let it go.
I forgot you like Godzilla.
I'm sexually attracted to Godzilla.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. So when I was really young, my dad, this is how different times were in the 70s, he would drop me and my best friend off at the cinema every Saturday morning to watch 2 Godzilla movies. And it was so different back then. My parents didn't go with us. They just dropped us off for 4 hours.
Did you have a favorite?
I like Mecha Godzilla. That one when he battles him. Especially when Godzilla goes to kick him and he flies on his back through the air. But I remember whenever he got shot, I would cry. That's like how serious I was about Godzilla.
I liked the one where the boy gets abducted by gangsters in the beginning, the human boy, and then while he's dreaming, he dreams that he goes to Monster Island, and then they rerun all the best scenes of all the Godzilla monsters.
Do we need to do a Godzilla podcast, I think?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.